So thank you so much for joining us for Charlotte Mecklenburg Library's Parent Lunch and Learn program. Today we have Adrienne Johnson from the Independence Regional Library joining us for a special presentation on celebrating big feelings. So I'll turn it over to you, give you an opportunity to introduce yourself.
Great. Thanks, Elise, and thanks to those of you who are here with us today and those who are watching later. I am excited to share a little bit about what we can do to hold space for our own feelings and to be present for the feelings, the big feelings of our kids. So I just wanted to introduce myself briefly. One thing that I love to say is that the first 40 years of parenting are always the hardest. So I am halfway into that. I have a 23-year-old and a 20-year-old. And of course, there are ups and downs through this path of being a parent. And some years are more challenging than others. And some of us are just more suited to having and being in a relationship with, older kids. I know my mother was a high school teacher and she loved teens. And my dad was a middle school teacher and he loved tweens. And so each of us kind of has some ages that might be easier for us to navigate when we're in a relationship with kids. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that and also tell you that I am a librarian and I've worked in education and libraries since 2005. And I'm also a certified parenting coach. This is where I learned a lot of the information that I'm going to share with you today. And the kind of parenting, the coaching that I have done is about conscious parenting. So it really is about being aware of yourself and your own patterns and habits so that you can take care of yourself. This is kind of like that, put your own oxygen mask on first, so then that you can be present and take care of your kids. So one of the reasons that I like to help people with this is because I made all the mistakes. I made all of the mistakes as my kids were growing up, and I've learned from them. And I like to share with parents to make their process and their lives easier and more joyful and more peaceful in their homes. So that's a little bit about me. So as we get started, I'd love for you to just take a moment and check in with your own body. So you can place your hands on your heart and just maybe even close your eyes, not if you're driving. Close your eyes and just take a breath and just notice like where do you feel any tension in your body? Just notice, like, do your shoulders feel tense? Do you have some tension in your forehead or maybe a tight belly? And just notice and think about that for just a moment. You could even, you notice the places in the body, but you could even rate it on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the most tense, and 1 being really loose and relaxed. And if you'd like to, you can put that in the chat. If you're driving, don't put it in the chat, just think it or say it out loud. And I always like to start with a little bit of mindfulness. We're going to take a moment to breathe with this expanding bubble. So you can use your hands and you can compress them and then you can open them up and take a breath. Let the breath out. And again. Maybe your breath gets bigger and longer. Maybe your exhale gets longer. You can even let go of this image and just close your eyes and reach your arms out and take some breaths, creating a little space in our bodies and a little bit of space in our hearts for what we're going to learn today. And with mindfulness, we also create some space between our actions and how we respond to things. So that's why we're going to be practicing some somatic exercises today to help us to feel more calm in our bodies. And they're all things that you can do yourself personally and that you can also teach to your children. So now I would love for you to just let go of that breath and then just check in with the body again. And notice if there's any change, if there's a little less tension, or if maybe it's moved or is in a different place in the body. And just notice if there's a difference, and if there's not a difference, that's worth noticing too. Like maybe that technique the first time doesn't work great for you, and that's okay. All right. So we're going to talk about the science behind why we respond the way we do to our kids and their feelings. So a lot of us have learned about the nervous system, of course, in school growing up. And so love for you to just take a moment to think about what you already know about the nervous system. If you have a pencil and paper, you could write it out, or you could type some things into the chat. What are you already like, just some quick associations with the nervous system? We'll just take a few moments to do that. Where we're just kind of priming our scaffolding for what we already know so that we can build on that. Some of us may be familiar with the Schoolhouse Rock. The nervous system, beep-a-deep, beep, beep, beep-a-deep. It's a telegraph line, and you've got yours, I've got mine. It's called the nervous system. That's what I think of when I think of the nervous system and all that kind of like quirky animation. But the nervous system has three key responsibilities within our bodies. And the first, of course, is sensation, senses. So the body is at a static homeostasis level, and then it is scanning the environment, just looking around to see what changes are happening. And it's gathering the information through, of course, our five senses, but through a multiplicity of senses as well. And I think that's generally what we think of and what we teach kids about the nervous system, right? You touch the stove, it's hot. Your body senses that, and then you respond. There's a voluntary and an involuntary response for pulling your hand off the hot stove. So we've got sensing the environment and then responding to the environment. And the third part of the nervous system's responsibilities is integration. And that is processing the information so that we can make a choice. It's like, if you are playing baseball and you get a pitch, you're bringing in the information through your eyes and noticing that the ball is coming towards you, and then you have a chance to say, oh, last time that ball was high, I swung at it and I missed. I'm not going to swing this time. So we have a chance to integrate what we have learned and connect to memory, and then we have a chance to choose. So our nervous system is, of course, working all the time to help keep us safe. And there is a field of study called the polyvagal theory that lots of folks are looking into right now and researching. And one of the findings from these researchers is that our bodies are constantly scanning the environment to make sure that we're safe. So we have something called neuroception, and that is that we're looking around to ensure that there are no harmful things in our environment. So if you look at the image on the screen here, you'll see, I know this creepy nervous system body, but scanning the environment using the senses, the five senses that we commonly refer to, and other senses to detect if there's threat. So if each of us were to look at this image, we might define threat differently. So for some folks, that plant might be a threat if they have a pet who can't eat the plant. They might see this and say, oh, we can't bring the cat in here. Might eat the plant and get sick. That happened to my last cat. Or some folks might scan this environment and see the basketball and say, oh, the basketball is a threat to me because I was always picked last when I was in junior high and I never got to make the team. So it might, what is innocuous to someone else might seem scary or dangerous to us. And these are kind of some silly examples, but when we're talking a little bit with more nuance, we might say something like, if a baby is crying while I'm trying to put the baby in the car seat, my body might scan that situation and find the crying as a threat. So is the baby going to break? No. Is the baby going to, like poison you, like the plant would poison the cat? No. But because of the way that our nervous system was wired in childhood, we might perceive that as threat. Another example might be if a teen comes to you and says, don't tell me how to run my life. I know what I want to do, and you can't tell me what to do. Our nervous system, even when I say that, seriously, my nervous system reacts. I've got two young adults, and guess what? They want to live their own lives. So if you do start to get triggered while we're working through this today, one thing you can do is clasp your hands like this and just pull them apart and give yourself a little resistance. And take some deep breaths. And then you might notice the body calming down, just having something to resist. Another thing that you could do is if you could press on the side of a table or a wall, like that. Using your whole body, creating that resistance is a signal to the nervous system to calm down. So if your nervous system is scanning in the environment, the baby is crying, the teen is telling you, don't tell me what to do, you can do some of these practices. In the moment, it might look weird, but wouldn't it be better to look weird than to lose it with your child or the person that you really care about? So pulling apart, pushing together, pushing on the wall, those are some things we can do, even that expanding breath with our hands, moving back and forth. So that is a little bit of an explanation of why we might behave as though there's a threat, even if it's something that probably other people won't interpret as a threat. Oh, so we can also press our hands together, a little practice. So when we think about why the body and the brain and the nervous system is interpreting these as threats, we can think about looking in the rear view mirror. Because our nervous system was developing, and like our brain develops so much in early childhood, that looking back can help us make sense of our present. And then having that understanding can help us to look out of the windshield to be like, I want to behave differently. I don't have to be trapped by what happened in the past and how my nervous system was wired. I can understand, and now in the present, make a choice to have a different future for myself and my relationship with my kids. So sometimes the work that we do as we're looking at the nervous system can be, of course, triggering because we're looking at our past experiences that maybe our grown-ups when we were young had the best intentions. Maybe they loved us so much, but they weren't able to be present with us when we were having a tough time. So, for example, if there was a rule in your family that nobody could cry, and then you had to kind of sneak away if you were sad and cry, it might be tricky for you to be present as a grown-up with other people who cry. It might be pretty hard for you to be present with that. So if we can bring some awareness to that, then we can look at, oh, where does that story lie within my body and me right now? We can practice some of these somatic practices to let that emotion release. So it can be a useful exercise to think back to your own childhood and just remember what feelings were not permitted in your childhood home. And we do this with lots of grace and compassion, knowing that our parents were trying their best. Most parents really, really are. And of course, we all make mistakes. So we need to have a lot of grace and compassion for ourselves and for our parents as we were growing up. So I'd love to just take a moment to review and think back and what feelings were not really permitted in your home. And if you do have a pencil and paper, you can jot this down. If you'd like to write it in the chat, that's also welcome. And if you need some reminders, I have got up here the 6 basic emotions, human emotions: anger, sadness, fear, joy, disgust, and surprise. So if you needed some hints, but of course there are many, there are thousands of feelings, but these are just some roots. So just take a few moments to reflect on that. Maybe write it down or in the chat, and then we'll come back and share. Does anyone feel brave, and would you like to hop on and share any thoughts on this? If not, that's okay too. It's pretty personal. Um, I'm happy to share, of course, from my experience as I've done some of this work. One emotion that wasn't okay at my house growing up was anger. So, and we said it, like it was not said, nobody said you can never be angry, but anger had to be expressed in like a passive aggressive type of way, like slamming cupboard doors if nobody wanted to help make dinner, that kind of thing. No one came to you and said, I feel angry because my boundary was violated. It was just, I'm going to slam the door, or somebody suppressing and not talking about their feelings, and then suddenly a volcano. But you couldn't say, I'm angry in our home growing up. We also couldn't say, I feel disappointed. The only people who were allowed to feel disappointed were the grown-ups. Kids couldn't feel disappointed. So that is a tough feeling for me to feel now. I mean, of course, disappointed. It's a challenging feeling, but it's really hard for me to feel that, and hard for me to be around other folks who are feeling angry and disappointed. I still am working on feeling those feelings in my body and expressing them appropriately. So when we're looking back, then we are coming to the present and looking and seeing what feelings expressed by others are now challenging for us to be around. And think to like your own children, and what you feel in your body when they express those feelings. So we'll just pause for just a moment and give you a chance to reflect on that. What feelings expressed by others, generally your own children, are challenging for you to be present with? And we've all got them. Would anyone like to share? Anybody like to pop on and share? I know it's really personal, so if you don't care to, that's okay. But I think it's a
I
great
can
to.
share a little,
Oh, go
or
for it.
I think it's challenging to be around others that are fearful, that have fear about something that maybe you don't fear yourself. And so then it's easy to just be like, that's not a big deal, or
Mhm.
something like that.
Yeah. Do you have any examples, Elise, that you're thinking of that you might be able to share?
Not else that I want to share.
Okay. Yeah, this is very personal stuff, but thank you for that. Yeah. A lot of sometimes our programming as kids is like fear. Fear can, of course, keep us safe, but it also prevents us from being um, outgoing and can really keep us small in our lives. So, if you have a kind of a pattern of like wrestling with your own fear and then maybe overcoming it, seeing other people letting it hold them back might be really challenging. You like want to help them free up and grow and so that would make sense to me. Yeah. All right. So there's this is part of the research into polyvagal theory as well. It's called the window of tolerance. So we have a certain capacity for being present for challenging emotions. And of course, our window, our capacity for being present for that is much wider when we're like rested and well fed and the weather's nice and everybody got up on time. You know, those things we feel like we're in our social engagement, we're able to be happy and we feel light in our bodies. But when there is too much pressure, when we haven't slept well, when things are not going great in our relationships, you know, then our window of tolerance shrinks. And I also think of it as like the fuse, you know, like when we're in relationship with kids, sometimes we have a really long fuse and we're like, I can take it, I can take it, I can take it. You can cry and I can be present for that. And then suddenly maybe this fuse shortens and then, you know, you might explode or have a coping mechanism that isn't the healthiest. So this window of tolerance, we want to continue to grow and open the window of tolerance by taking care of ourselves with these kinds of nervous system practices that we've talked about, like the pushing of the hands together, the pushing against the wall, the breathing. Another one, and we might as well do it right now, is a favorite one, a new favorite that I have, and it's giving yourself a hug. So you put one hand in your armpit, like your right hand in your left armpit, and your left hand on your right shoulder. And just give yourself a little hug. And keep like hugging yourself and give yourself some compression. And you might notice a spontaneous breath come to the body or a yawn. And when you do, that's the nervous system receiving the signal that it's safe and that you're okay. And this is, you know, doesn't look quite as weird as some of the other things we've done. But when we're in a moment when we're like, I feel myself getting more tense, you can give yourself a little hug. You could even like speak some words of self-compassion to yourself. Be like, it's okay to feel this way. Everyone feels this way sometimes, and I'm human too. And I'm going to be gentle with myself right now. So these kinds of practices are going to help us widen our window of tolerance so that we can be more present with our kids. When we do get outside of that window, there are kind of two different areas that we can go to. We can go to hyperarousal, which is our volcano. Like we feel angry, we feel out of control. And it's that fight or flight response, hyper arousal of our nervous system. And it's not something that you necessarily choose. These are reactions in the body, right? So I wouldn't choose to yell at my kids. I don't want to choose that, but that might be my default state when I get outside of this window of tolerance. So the other option that also is a reaction, not a choice, is hypoarousal. Spaced out, numb, frozen. Your body just wants to shut down. And I think we probably all have had these different range of experiences. You know, people talk about, I have a fight, flight, or freeze response, but like we all have access to all of those. So we might respond differently in different situations. And it's really useful to recognize this in ourselves. Like, what is it that sends me over the top? And what is it that is more likely to send me into that spaced out, frozen state? And on the flip side of that, it's really helpful to also recognize that these are ways that our kids' nervous systems respond. So, for example, my son, when he was a teen during COVID and after COVID, he was in the hypoarousal space for a good amount of time. And I didn't know about nervous system stuff at the time. So I was pretty freaked out. I was like, this kid is not engaged in anything and he is really frozen. And now I know I've got some strategies like for being able to help him, dip my toe into where he is and help him move progressively out of that state. Whereas back then I was like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. It felt like the worst thing ever. Not in that cartoon voice. It felt terrible. But now I know a little bit more about it. That was his nervous system responding. He wasn't like refusing to participate. His body was telling him he couldn't. So it helps to have this understanding both of ourselves. Like maybe we might blame ourselves when we're like, I don't really feel like getting out of bed this morning. It's too hard. But that's our nervous system. When we can take care of the nervous system, then we're more likely to move out of hypo or out of hyperarousal and back into that window of tolerance, of feeling in social engagement and feeling good about ourselves and in our bodies. So I wanted to share with you a little tool, and I'm going to also send it to you. This is called the Calmometer, and it's just a way of gauging how you're feeling in your body and bringing yourself back into that window of tolerance. So there are two parts of this. There are the body sensations. And if you remember back to when we were talking earlier about the nervous system, the three different functions, of course, the first is sensation. So we're going to tune into the body and just notice how the body is feeling. And when we are feeling, that's the second part. It's going to be our sensory calming tools. But when we're feeling like we're within that window of tolerance, we can handle what's around us. We're feeling calm, feeling present. Our bodies might feel light and loose. I feel like, oh, so easy. Yeah, we say yes to things here. This is the place where we're like, things are good. I'm going to say yes. And ways to keep us in that green zone, humming, creating that vibration across the heart. This is the space where our vagus nerve actually runs from the back of our skull down our heart space and down into our belly. But this humming, very calming to the nervous system. Singing, of course, also, plus early literacy skill. And listening to calming music, even like swinging the arms. I know this was a weird one. This looks weird, but try it. Just try it. It gives you a sense of kind of freedom, and it also like is blocking up any energy or tension that we have from sitting on our desks. It's free and easy and can be fun. Getting into a little bit more into our lightheartedness, we can skip around with our kids too. So those are ways to help us stay in that green zone. Like, I'm feeling good. I want to stay here. If we don't take any action, we might start to get tense again. So just kind of building in some of these easy habits, humming to yourself, singing a song to the kids, even singing to them when you're feeling a little tense can help relieve your own stress and bring you back down. If we're checking in with our bodies and we're noticing, hey, I'm starting to get a little tight here. I'm starting to get a little annoyed about how many times I've had to put on that shoe on this child and they've taken it off and thrown it across the room. I'm starting to get a little annoyed. You might sense in the body, my tightness often comes here at my jaw and in my shoulders. Maybe for you, it's in your belly, might be in your back or other places. But once you start to notice that you're checking in, then you might need to do some bigger movements in the body, some bigger sensory calming tools to help you get back to calm. So this might be some big motion, dancing, put on a song and have a dance party. Even if the kid doesn't dance, even if the kid is crying, That's going to help you calm down and also might distract them. And they also might join in. You can also sing a little louder. I'm a big singer. I love to sing. So that's something that I feel really comfortable with. If there's something else that you would feel comfortable with, you would want to write it on your chart. Then if we're getting a little bit even more tense in our bodies, this is like the shoe went out the window in the car. Not only was the shoe thrown off the foot, it's it's out the window. Maybe your jaw is clenching, but you're pretending to smile. I do this sometimes. For me, noise gets overwhelming, like too many people, too many inputs. I just call it like too many inputs. Too many people are talking, there's music playing, the air conditioning's on. It's like I can't handle all these inputs. And I'll feel like my anger starting to rise. Maybe my arms are getting tense. There's more tension in the body. So you can see how the temperature of our body sensations are getting more intense. So we are going to need bigger motions in the body to bring us back down. I know it looks weird to do jumping jacks in your kitchen, but I will tell you, I have done it and it works. When kids don't want to go to bed and you desperately want them to because you're tired and you want to go rest yourself, we have choices. We can let our temperature get too high and explode, or we can take a break, do some jumping jacks, and they'll be like, why are you doing jumping jacks? They can join you or not. And then after you've done enough jumping jacks, even kind of like maybe angry jumping jacks, it's okay. It's a better choice than losing it, right? Looking weird, doing some angry jumping jacks, stomping your feet, maybe drumming, maybe not best for bedtime, but drumming, other times can help calm the body down, uses up that tension energy and returns you back to calm. The next step, when you start to really get red on your thermometer, your breath is shallow, your chest is tight and heavy, your body's starting to buzz, and maybe your thoughts are like, am I gonna lose it? Am I gonna lose it? Am I gonna keep it together or lose it? Here again, we have other options, burpees, jumping jacks, maybe a more prolonged stomping of the feet and a movement in the body, bigger, like a more aggressive dance song, something like that to help you move back to green. And then we know that we all sometimes lose it. And we might feel this kind of white hot rage. It's like, I can't contain this feeling any longer. My body feels like it's going to explode. I shout or hit my fists on the table. I race out of the room. I slam the door. This is our nervous system saying, I can't take it anymore, right? So I think that there are lots of grownups who are in relationship with kids who feel like if this happens, they're a bad person. And that would make all of the world full of bad people, because this is the way our nervous system is designed to keep us safe. So if there is a time in your life where you have been in this space, like we all have, like please have grace for yourself and know that that is something that everyone experiences. It's part of the human experience. And lucky us, we get to be part of this. So we can have a little grace for ourselves and just understand and recognize that that's okay. There are steps to make repair with the people that we need to repair with, and that it's okay. And of course, like if we start to get to that white hot rage space, there are things we can do. We can excuse ourselves. We can use words. I'm too hot right now. I got to excuse myself. I like to pull weeds because this feels like destructive energy, right? Like kids knocking down the Tower of Blocks. I also like to swiftly walk around the neighborhood. Like I'm a speed walker suddenly. It's an angry walk. A double foot stomp. Sometimes also limiting our sensory input, getting into darkness, putting on noise canceling headphones, getting into like something really cozy, like a cozy robe or a weighted blanket. That sensory input that feels calming to your body could also help you to move out of that space. So these are some ideas that I have put together based on my nervous system and experience, but I think we have your emails, so I'll be able to email you uh, a copy of this that you can make for yourself. And it's also really helpful to have one of these for each of your kids because they respond differently. Like some kids like to have their arms rubbed and like to be sung to. Some do not enjoy that sensory experience. Some are more prone, like I said, to like that hyper response, and some are prone to kind of melt. So we can use this calmometer. I'm going to hop back. We can use this as a tool with our kids too. If they're not able to read yet, we can put visual cues on there and be like, when you feel like this, then we do our jumping jacks. Then we listen to our listen to some music and dance. So we're making sense of what their internal lives are so that they can feel like they make sense to themselves and make choices for themselves about how to remain calm or take care of their own selves. And of course, they're not going to be good at this right off. Neither are we. It takes a lot of practice. So I would encourage you just to when you get your calmometer, just to fill it out for yourself and to work with it for a little while. Post it up where the kids can see it too, so that they can know that you are getting started on something new about taking care of yourself. They'll probably be curious, especially when you're doing the jumping jacks in the kitchen. Or like pulling apart on your arms when you're trying to talk calmly. But it is great to model that for them. And I do have an acronym that can be helpful when we're thinking about the nervous system and how to take care of ourselves when we're in relationship with kids. And this too takes practice, but it's called ANCHOR. And the A is just for awareness of the body. Like, oh, temperature starting to rise, starting to grit my teeth, just having that awareness. And then being able to name it. I'm aware that there's tension in my jaw, and I'm saying it out loud. There's tension in my jaw right now. Then we can use that calmometer to connect to our sensory calming tool. Like, okay, that's right. For me right now, I can swing my arms, be a little bit silly, swing my arms and talk about, oh, this is feeling silly, but at least I'm losing some of that tension in the jaw. H is for honor the process. We're not going to be perfect at it. We're going to mess up, and I don't want to feel this way, but I'm practicing. O is opening to connection with yourself and with your child. Now I am better in my body, feeling calmer. I can be present for the child who's crying, or the child who threw the shoe out the window, or the child who doesn't want to hear my advice as a very sage adult and they want to, get the piercing or the tattoo or do whatever it is they're going to do. And then the R in anchor is to recommit to your child and the present moment. Like, I'm open and I'm committing to being present and to really listening to what it is that's happening for you and getting curious about what's happening for the child. So that acronym, I hope that you find that helpful also. And once we're able to offer this to ourselves, then we're able to offer it to our children. And that is like, what an amazing gift to give them as the gift of a parent who feels safe in their body. And then children will feel safe with you. So I wanted to share a couple of books that are useful if you're interested in learning more about the nervous system. These are for, for us as grown-ups. The book by Deb Dana, Anchored, talks about polyvagal theory, and she has some really excellent resources that more of these kinds of strategies and movements in the body that can be done to help you feel safe and calm. So I would recommend that. And then she also has, these are taken from our library catalog too, so you can check them out. Befriend Your Nervous System. That is, we have an audio book, an audio download that you can borrow from the library. And then Dr. Dan Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson have a series of books about these kinds of this kind of science and strategies. A great one is called The Whole Brain Child, and I would recommend it. All of their books together are so helpful. And then I also have created a list in BiblioCommons that are great books for kids for helping them understand their feelings and seeing different options for what to do when they have big feelings. A great one is called Listening to My Body by Gabby Garcia. And it goes through step by step these kinds of strategies that we've talked about. And it's less of a story and a little bit, more instructive. But these other three on here, When Sophie Gets Angry, Really, Really Angry, is a classic by Molly Bang. Sophie gets really mad, and the colors in the book, the illustrations are so intense. And she gets mad and like she runs away and stomps her feet and climbs a tree, within her within her yard. And she feels regulated by being out in nature, and she comes back home. She feels good again. And then we have The Rabbit Listened. And that is a child is having a tough time with building some blocks and having his blocks fall down, and different friends come with different strategies. And we can see, I think that's really illustrative of like sometimes the strategy that worked last time with our kid doesn't work this time. So it's helpful to see that there can be different strategies to use at different times. And if you use something that doesn't ring true with them at the moment, it's okay. We try again. But there are also several other books on that list. And so I'm happy I'll send out that link to you as well to share, so you can check out some of those. And I would love to just say, I know we're going to stop the recording, but I want to say thanks for showing up, and please stay on. I would love to hear your questions and chat more informally with those of you who are here on the call. So thanks again for the opportunity to share this information. Yay, libraries. Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing all that information.